Hello, extra time.
They point to the league not to get a hoy because it damages your reputation. It makes people, when they read, they just laugh at you.
The single club, they're playing in the League One and they're playing in the Europa League and they're credit to the game in this country. Maybe we should get Stephen Henderson to manage the Irish team.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Airtricity.com podcast. Your host Luke Jordan, did I say Macdara Ferris, Donal and Oisin Langan with me today. I won't get them all today though, to be here all day. Later on we have Stephen Henderson joining us, and I'd say it's pretty box office, Macdara. It's a good interview.
When you get Stephen on, you get him going. Yeah, he's great, and it was quite a wide-ranging chat across a whole different load of topics. So be interested for those right across the league, I think.
I thought we haven't recorded in a few weeks, so apologies to our loyal listenership. Unfortunately, it's not my full-time gig, so life does take over sometimes. But I can guarantee we're back now full-time every week, so don't worry about that. But look, I suppose the big news that happened the last couple of weeks was that Jon Daly took over as first-team manager of Pats after the Shelburne game. I will start with Oisin. It was probably the most likely appointment. I know there was other names linked. Neil Lennon at one stage. There was even talk Robbie Keane was in the frame, and other managers of that ilk, but I suppose Jon Daly is probably the safe pair of hands to give it to after the couple of wins.
I know that sometimes people question whether or not a member of the previous manager's backroom team should get a job or not. I have no issue with it because sometimes they are the best person for it. And often an assistant manager, while they are present, they don't get to make the decisions. It's a very different job being the manager to being the assistant manager. And obviously, Jon Daly did enough to impress the board. And I don't know whether or not he had to do actual interviews, because in those interviews, you outline how you're going to play. Well, he got a chance to actually do that in the most practical way possible by actually managing games. And they saw enough in those games to give him the full-time job. He holds himself very well. I have to say, I didn't really know Jon to talk to before the last couple of weeks, because Tim Clancy or Adam Matthews would do the pre and post match interviews. I would do all the same Pat's home games for LOI TV, and like anyone who follows the league, you just know a bit about each team. But talking to him, a very approachable guy, a very clear communicator, and obviously a good man to set up a team, because they have looked really structured, and they've upped the intensity, upped the pace a little bit. They look like they're more of a threat. And look, we could debate it all day. I felt Tim Clancy was perhaps a little unlucky, and maybe my personal view of Tim and the fact that I actually like him as a person is clouding my judgment there. But look, the move was made. He is gone. Someone else was going to get the job. And I know it wasn't the most stellar appointment in a sense that there were big names linked to it. Not sure any of those names were suitable to it, to be honest. But he knows the club. He knows the squad. And from what I've seen and from what I've heard and from the way he talks, he knows his football. And actually, if you listen to Jon's interviews, both pre and post, he gives you a good tactical breakdown. He gives you the reason why the team have played the way they do. Now, I don't know him well enough to know if that's something he would have always done. Did he do that when he was in charge of Hearts on an interim basis, when he was in other previous coaching jobs? Or is he doing that because one of the things that fans were saying in the last couple of weeks of Tim was that they weren't sure what the team were doing or if the team even knew. So maybe he's putting a message out there to the fans and saying, well, this is what we're doing. And he knows you might as well say it because the opposition manager is going to spot it. You know, other teams know what all the other teams are doing. So you're not giving away a state secret. But look, it's been a good start for Jon Daly, and I think the fact that he was there and knows the league and knows the players, both his own and the opposition, has served him well.
Just to come in on Oisin's point there as well, in terms of an assistant manager stepping up to becoming the manager, very similar scenario around this time last year, actually, in Sligo, when John Russell got the Sligo Rovers job as the permanent manager, and he got a fair bit of stick from a couple of people from around saying that, you know, he played his own part in Liam Buckley's departure and all this kind of stuff, but he's settled into the role very well. And as has Jon Daly, you know, I haven't seen too many people giving out about his appointment, and like I said, he seems to have started very well anyways and got Pats playing like they have a bit more direction now, again, as Oisin said there. So
it gets very Machiavellian, doesn't it? People say, oh, well, did that assistant manager play a part in the previous manager losing their job. I find that a nonsense argument, because it's in your interest, if you're an assistant manager, to do the job well and for the team to be performing. So, and I'm speaking in general terms here, I might add, not just about Jon getting the job in Sligo and Jon, different spelling of Jon, getting the job at St. Pat's. But in general terms, I think that argument is bunkum.
Very Shakespearean there, thinking of Iago stabbing Othello in the back. This kind of argument. They're very philosophical.
But I never bought that, right? I never bought that Iago could manipulate Othello like that, because think about it. Othello, against all odds, had risen through the ranks, was in a very senior position, a very intelligent man. So I refuse to believe that he could be twisted by a character like that. I have to say, I never bought Othello as a play and a concept.
My leaving cert English teacher, if she hears this, will be in shock that I'm talking about Othello 8 years later on a football podcast.
8 years, God, I'm 20 years at this. Well, not, is it 20? 98? God, that's more than 20 years, isn't it? It's 25 years since I did the leaving. Wow.
I'll make you feel bad. I'm only 8, so I'm only a young pup still. But Macdara, I suppose, one of the key games, since we dashed record, was the Rovers Pats match. Do you see a difference in between when Pats arrived at Tim Clancy on the year, at the Jon Daly arrived in his team? Do you see any difference in terms of style of play?
I thought Pats were more ambitious. I thought Pats were more ambitious under Jon Daly, and it could easily have been, it was 2-2 in Tala when Tim Clancy was manager. Could very easily have been 2-2 last time around, but Richie Towell delighted. I think he's from Inchicore. Was that the reason for his delight in celebrating?
As far as I know, he's from Inchicore Bluebell, isn't he?
Yeah, so he got the winner, but I'd back up what Oisin said. I would have heard a few interviews with Jon Daly. You know, he was vying for the job. You know, he was looking to he put himself out there when he was still interim manager. But you know, that's what you have to do. And if you look at the results, it's 4 wins in 5, and the only defeat was to 88 or 89 minutes penalty in Tala Stadium.
Yeah, and I suppose another key factor aspect I've seen to the team since he's taken over is kind of resilience. I mean, going to Talca Park, I was covering the game for extra time. First half, Shells probably did it the better of the game. Second half, Pats grew stronger and got the goal, won the game 1-0 away. And obviously, Talca Park is a difficult place to go the best times. And Oisin bring in here, obviously playing Dundalk down to 10 men and going out and winning the match again shows that resilience he's probably put into the team.
Yes, and the tactical nous as well. When you say they caught them on the break, it always makes it sound like a team were lucky. They're not, because when you catch a team on the break, you have to wait for your moment, and it was no fluke. And like the changes he made, he put a lot of pace up top, and 2 players with a lot of pace, and 2 changes that he made, Carty and Lonergan combined, and managed to get that winning goal. Now, the sending off itself, I can't understand how Malley wasn't sent off and Mulroney was. Because it's still not clear to me why that decision was made. I know we're not talking about that decision specifically, and I know we probably don't want to get into officiating in the League of Ireland tonight because there's been so much talk about that. But Mulroney you could understand why a red card was shown there, because Mulroney kind of moved his leg in a kicking motion and kind of went to slap Malley away. Now, he didn't make contact with him, but Malley got him into a headlock. So Pats were given a reason. Also, they were given a reason to rally. But also, like, the crowd that night were phenomenal. Now, there was a lot of factors at play there. One, the Stephen O'Donnell thing. And as I said several times in my LOI TV commentary, there's a real Taylor Swift energy about that. I think the Pats fans need to get over that a little bit. I better be careful. I don't want to lose my gig at St. Pat's. But like, look, I know it's football and we get obsessed in these things and whatever, but like, fans waiting for over an hour after the game to chant at Stephen O'Donnell as he left the ground, I thought, do you not have better things to be doing with your Friday night? Come on, lads, the last late show is on. Go home and watch that. And it was primarily lads. There was a few girls there as well. But he knew exactly what he was doing, Daly, when he made the changes. And I like that they never looked uncomfortable, even with 10 players. They always looked like they could soak up the pressure. And when you have the pace that they do up top and the runners in behind and the way they can work the ball as they did for the goal, you possess a danger. Plus, Chris Forrester looks like a man possessed in recent weeks. I mean, he has really played his way into the season. And when you have a player like Forrester, who in my view is in that Jack Byrne bracket of the best in the league at the moment, And I actually think he is as good, if not better, than Jack Byrne when he's at his best. And that's not to degrade Jack Byrne, because I think he's a phenomenal player. I just think the two of them are really just in like a bracket nearly of their own. That helps too. Things happen. But he also has Lennon diving in front of shots towards goal and getting something on it. And again, that sounds like, look, something on it. It's not. You have to work hard. You have to get yourself into position. You have to dive at balls. Adam Murphy is doing a job that another Adam did last year of just providing that little bit of energy around the middle and snapping at heels and breaking up play and whatever. Sam Curtis at 17, for him to go from, like, it's hard to play in any position, I imagine, at that age in the League of Ireland, but for him to go from fullback into centre back and look quite comfortable doing it, that says an awful lot about Sam, but it also says an awful lot about what they're doing overall at St. Pat's and what they're doing with their academies. And Keith Tracy is working there, and Jamie Moore is doing a fantastic job there. And they're not the only ones. They're desperately unlucky in a sense that Kravosty now has picked up that injury and is out for the season. Redmond out for a few weeks, so that'll be testing. But yeah, you can see it when you look at the team live at the ground, what Jon Daly is trying to do, and just the pace of how they're doing it as well is really impressive. Because there was times under previous management they had a lot of possession, but they looked a bit pedestrian, and they didn't go maybe as direct as they could have, and they didn't go as quick as they could have. But now they seem to be able to up it when necessary, but also they look comfortable when they need to, sit back and soak up pressure.
I think there's a couple of very valid points there, which you're making. The first one is obviously Chris Forrest's form. I'm obviously incredibly biased, but I do think if he's one of the best players in the league, he is the best player in the league on his day. Like the way he can manipulate football, and he isn't flying form this season. He's an excellent player. Obviously, that's completely subjective, but anyway, I think the position of Sam Curtis is something maybe it's gone a bit unnoticed too. It's interesting talking to people in the club behind the scenes. Always thought Sam Curtis as more of a centre back. I know people maybe were thinking his height, whatnot, but I think since he's gone back into the centre, I think he's played better this season. I think he's a natural centre half. I think it suits him better, and it's going to be really interesting the second part of the season now, where obviously Kravoski's out injured, so he done his ACL, he's out the season. Redmond, I don't know when he'll be back. So you're looking at now McGrath and Curtis as the back two centre halves in the back four, which is going to be interesting how they get through that. I mean, Noel Lewis is there, but I don't think he's been particularly a good signing so far, which is unfortunate. So it's going to be interesting that plays. So again, look, it's going to be interesting for how they get on next couple of weeks. I suppose a real test now is probably the next two games out of bank holiday, and you play UCD Friday night. Expect to win. Don't think that's too much to say, but the Monday night game is there. He's going to be very interested again how to get on there.
I do think there's a bit of talent in Lewis. Like, there's times and moments where he's impressed me, and now that maybe he has to step up and he could potentially be the man, that might benefit him and you might get the best out of him. Could you put Timmermans in centre back? I don't know. Is it worth trying? Lennon, I think if you were to put him at centre back, and again, I'm doing the thing here, lads, where I see a defensive midfielder, and then I think, oh, well, surely then you could put him at centre back, but you probably lose too much out of the middle if you do that. But he could potentially do the role if necessary. Maybe then you could rejig the midfield a bit, bring Mulroney back inside, put Murphy in the middle there, because he could do a lot of what Lennon does, and you've McClellan then as an option, either to do one of the two roles I just mentioned there. So they do have options. It will test the squad a bit. Joe Redmond is a huge loss, and because they've won 4 out of 5 or whatever it is in recent weeks, maybe that loss hasn't been felt as much, but you can still see it. And even in games where they might be trailing and need to get a goal from a set piece, Joe Redmond is a big deal there. So hopefully he'll be back soon as well. And it's such a pity for he himself as well, Joe Redmond, because during one of the bad nights this season for Pats, he actually nearly voluntarily spoke to the media afterwards. And it wasn't one of those sickening tweets that you see from players after a game, after a bad performance. We know it's not good enough, blah, blah, blah. He was genuinely devastated and wanted to speak up for, at the time, his manager and the players, and say, look, we are going to work hard. We are working hard. And he was very genuine. And I've only ever spoken to him in person properly twice. And again, seems like I'll say young flip, because we've already outlined how old I am, given how long ago it was I did the leaving cert. But yeah, so you can rejig things around and you can patch it up for a while. You can put the plaster in for a while, but they do need to get Redmond back. And I just hope, and probably won't be the case, but I hope that there's a medical miracle and he can get back in time for Europe. And also as well, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is it July the window opens? So maybe they can get some cover there as well.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely somewhere a position Pats have to go into. I suppose on the positive side, I think Cyber actually has done well to come into the side last few weeks. So that's another issue kind of solved there, playing him right full, bring Curse in the centre. But again, I think they're going to have to really dip into the transfer market. I hate to ask the question, Macdara, but are we going to talk about officiating, or are we just going to completely ignore the weekend?
I think his silence speaks volumes. I say put Sean Grant in charge of every Shamrock Rovers match.
Like, I don't know how much you want to get into it. I think the first red card for Richie Towell was called by the assistant referee. I just think it's very hard for the assistant referee to make that call from over on the sideline when the ball's swung into the box as to whether that's a red or not. People watch the video. Some say Towell has kicked him in the face, and others haven't. But I think it's very hard for, like, you're watching the goal line footage and it's unclear, or you can have an opinion either way. So I think for an assistant referee to call it from out wide I just think that's too difficult to call to make. And also, it looked like the ball was in play at the time, which would mean that Cork City should have got a penalty kick. Like the Johnny Kenny first yellow card was from Mountain. He felt he was pushed into the advertising hoardings. It certainly looked like a foul to me. He was down where I was near on the ground. But Sean Grant didn't like, obviously, what he said, gave him a yellow card. Second one could have been a yellow, could not. He kind of hung a foot out there. Don't really know why Sean Hoare got his first yellow card. I think it was for something he said. He seemed to go up for a header, not really make it, and fall over and seem to get a yellow card. So I don't know. And then it was a high foot. He wins the ball. Studs are maybe showing. I just think any other referee. I thought Sean Grant lost control of the game. I think that's the phrase Stephen Bradley used. You could say maybe Rovers lost their discipline as well. But I think another referee might have just calmed things down. Talking about how old people are, but I'm going to football nearly 40 years. I've never gone to a game where I've seen a team go down to 8 men. And obviously, Sean Grant was the referee. He sent 2 players off Shamrock Rovers and Drogheda. Now, Lee Grace that night deserved his 2 yellow cards. Daniel Cleary picked up a second yellow, which wasn't a yellow at all. And in that Drogheda game, Daniel Cleary had a good few words to say to Sean Grant at the end of the game, as did Pico Lopez, as did Ronan Finn, and I think only Glenn Cronin coming over to remove them away from Sean Grant, who I noticed is not officiating a game this weekend, but is a 4th official at Dalymount Park. But it's a lot of red cards for Rovers, and they came within 5 minutes of going top of the league if they'd somehow managed to hold on to it. It was interesting to see what kind of formation they played with 8 men. They basically, Stephen Bradley got them to play really compact. They essentially left Cork get the ball, use on the wings. They just tried to get it back. And was looking at the stats. Both teams had only 8 shots on goal. There was only 1 shot on target in the whole game. But that was Rory Keating's goal to win it 5 minutes from time.
No, I suppose it's interesting in terms of only a couple of weeks ago, Stephen Bradley was complimenting the decision of, it was Rob Hennessy in the Bowls game. He said it wasn't a penalty. And like last week, it's came out very strong in terms of refereeing. I mean, the quality Zach was, that can't be acceptable for this league in terms of referee. They should never ref again in this league. It's incredible. They can't be the standard referee you have in this league. That's very strong to come out after a match.
Yeah, it was very strong. But like, what do you expect when your team are have been reduced to 8 men? I think another referee, the likes of Rob Hennessy, maybe Paul McLaughlin, and there were other challenges. We might talk to Donal about the red card that shouldn't have been at Sligo Rovers and the red card that should have been from Derry City. We've talked about the. I certainly think Conor O'Malley should have been sent off for that headlock. I think it's been mentioned before about, these clips are now available for everyone to have a look at on LOI TV, which is brilliant. So it's probably thrown a little bit more spotlight on. Like Shamrock Rovers did appeal the Richie Tell sending off, but I was looking at Sean O'Connell, who's he's a law lecturer, I think it's in UCC, and has been involved in some of the disciplinary, I think, appealing a red card before as well. So he's quite a knowledgeable person on this. He had a very good Twitter thread on this, just basically talking about how it's a very, very high bar for them to overturn what's in the referee's report. And I suppose the assistant referee deemed it that this was a red card offence for Tell, and it's a little bit kind of unclear. I don't think it's super clear. I think this was the 5th appeal so far. None of them have been overturned, but I think Rovers they certainly wanted to put a marker down, even if it did cost them €500. I think there was an issue earlier on in the year when they maybe went to try and appeal the Pico Lopez one, although I don't think that one would have been appealed because he did raise his hands. But yeah, it very much was took away from a game that was, was a big crowd at Turner's Cross. I think it was nearly 600 travelling fans as well. But Cork, it was a really, really important win for Cork City, and they got the 3 points. Now, the fact that it kind of moves them further clear away from UCD, but Drogheda had beaten Shamrock Rovers the previous week as well. So Rovers have lost 2 league games for the first time in a row since 2019. They haven't lost 3 in a row for over 5 years. So interesting when they face Dundalk on Friday night in the game that's live on RTE.
I'll let you come in here then. Macdara's kind of teed up for you in terms of the decision that happened rather in the showground Saturday night. I think probably there's 2 key ones really. The Diallo tackle, which I think most people watching would say it's a red card. Which was it given a yellow card? I think Macdara, that you're saying was a yellow card. He was booked. If that was the 64th minute, I just looked it up there, but I do see he's on the suspension list for the weekend, but it's a yellow card accumulation. But I don't know whether he was booked for that challenge, but it certainly looked a red card to me. Yeah, and then obviously the John Mann incident as well, which I think again most people will see they don't know why he was given a second book, and again it just creates that frustration throughout the league. That's not happening just to one team.
Yeah, absolutely bizarre decisions in the showgrounds last weekend. Kind of took the gloss off of what was a fantastic win for Sligo Rovers over the league leaders. That's 4 points Sligo Rovers have taken off Derry City and brought an end to a 3-game in a row losing streak. It was a badly needed 3 points for Sligo Rovers, no matter the opposition, but the way they played, digging in, especially when they went down to 10 men as well, and Derry were just throwing the kitchen sink at them for the last couple of minutes. It was pure backs to the wall stuff from Sligo Rovers, again having to defend with 10 men. But as Macdara was saying there, whatever about the red cards that were given, I think the decisions about the red cards that weren't given last weekend were even more scandalous. I mean, you talked at length there about Conor Malley not getting sent off. He absolutely got away with one. And Saturday Diallo, I don't even have any words for it. It's an absolutely outrageous challenge on Greg Bulger. That goes a fraction either way, to the left or to the right. It could have been a career ender, And the fact that he wasn't shown a straight red, but I don't know what you can say about it. But the fact again, as he was booked and he was whipped off minutes after that, says a lot. And then Rovers breaking on the attack. John Mahon wins the ball back in the middle of the park, or he's chasing back anyway, and the ref, the ball is played through, and Barlow is gone in, and the ref nearly waits until he's clear in before pulling it back and then showing a second yellow, which nobody could really understand what for, as you said, Luke. Mahon, I suppose, fortunate enough to come away with just a 1-match ban, given that it's his second red card this season, so he'll be out of contention for Bohemians, but he'll be back for the big one on Monday night against Shamrock Rovers in the showgrounds.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, we can park the referee talk for now. I think it's talk to death. I suppose the key thing for me is, and I'll leave it on this, is that we can give out a moan, but I suppose what are the solutions to this? And we can't be having these conversations consistently, and I suppose Stephen Bradley was giving out, in terms of pressure can cause on managers as well. A decision goes against you like that, it's horrendous. Could be the make or break your season. Referee, there's livelihoods on the line, like you said. But look, I think we'll park the referee talk, come back to the football. In terms of the win, actually, for Donal, for Sligo, like that was a big win. Like, I think since we last spoke, they'd lost train to bounce, questions then. I imagine I certainly turned to the hot seat. What's happened with John Russell and the team? That was a big win for them on Saturday night.
Yeah, it absolutely was. But just to wrap up, to finally wrap up the referee talk.
No. Referee's done. No, done. We can't have more. No. Go on.
All right. But yeah, no. In terms,
can I just jump in and make one point on referees before I go? And I do actually have to run off because I've mentioned already my leaving cert. I didn't study for that, and funnily enough, I thought it would never make a difference. Sure, I'm going to be a sports broadcaster. What do I need to study for? The key to being a sports broadcaster is study and is preparation. So I have to go off and study for Friday night because obviously it's a bank holiday weekend. Donal doesn't fancy the trip to Dublin. So I'm covering Sligo Rovers and Bulls on Friday night. The key to everything, the key to almost every problem in this world is education. Education, in this case, of the fans, of the players, and maybe the referees. Communication is also tied into that. We never hear from them. Like, there was a referee, and was it Tomas? You'll have to forgive me, I can't remember his name, who did that. Did a long chat with Johnny and Dan on LOI Central. Thank you, Macdara. He did a chat a couple of weeks ago on the LOI Central podcast, and it was fascinating. I was saying it to Colin Hawkins during the game on Friday night. Wouldn't it be great if the referees on Monday released a statement of, this is why we made the following decision, this is why it happened, here's the rule, and that's why the ref did it. And if there was mistakes made, admit it, because people actually genuinely will say, you know what, you're a human being, it's the heat of the moment, mistakes happen. I actually think they'd gain a lot of ground and a lot of understanding if they did that. And maybe that is the way to look at it. The other side of the education point that I was making is that I think we have now learned that we are in a professional league. Even the teams that are part-time, players are being paid money to do the job they're doing. I'm not sure referees are. They might get something, but it's not nearly, I imagine, what the players are getting. And that possibly needs to be looked at. And again, anytime you bring up resources or payment, people say, well, where do you get the money from? I don't know. Maybe you get the referees sponsored. It happens in many sports where the officiating team are sponsored. They're not paid by that sponsor. They just wear a Specsavers or they wear a AIB Bank or whatever thing on their logo. So that's one way of sourcing it. But I do think there probably needs to be more resources put into the referees, because it is a tough job and mistakes were made last week, but they are human like we are. And unlike players on a team, they don't have the backup that players have and supporters supporting players. The refs don't have a fan base to come in and support them and to stop pylons on Twitter. So I think there's a possibility, it is possible that we just need to look at how they're resourced, what they get, and the communication that they give to us as fans. I think we deserve to hear from them. And I think it would be good for them if there was more communication. Because the thing in Ireland is very often, if something goes wrong or you're being questioned, don't say anything, say nothing, don't communicate. I do media training, and I have to say that is a terrible thing to do. Always say something. You don't have to tell everyone everything, but always communicate. And it's always the best strategy. Gentlemen, on that, I will leave you. Enjoy the rest of the pod, and Ocean FM Friday night, Bulls versus Sligo Rovers. And of course, I'm back afterwards with an Extra Time League of Ireland Voice Notes podcast.
Yeah, you know where to go, guys.
Just gone to extra time here, Oisin. So yeah, perfect.
Like I said to Aoife's dad, I was watching it with them earlier on, and I said, I'm going to jump on this podcast, but it doesn't matter because I'll be done in time for penalties, and there will be penalties.
Okay, now we're definitely moving on from referees, because I can see Macdara's face. It just does not want to talk about officiating. I have tried, Macdara. I have tried to move on from officiating, and we'll move on now. Okay, back to the point I made. Sligo Rovers, big win Saturday night.
Yeah, absolutely massive. I mentioned it there just when we started talking about it before we got onto that lengthy discussion about how it was the end of a 3-game losing streak for Sligo Rovers, and there were 3 games really that they would have been eyeing up all 3 points for. Dundalk at home, Shelbourne at home, and then Cork away. I believe were the 3 results in a row that they lost, and the performances across all 3 of those games were just the Rovers just weren't at it. Simply, to put it simply, you can point fingers at certain players coming into the team or whatnot, but the fact of the matter is if they're given 50-60% at any game in the League of Ireland, you're probably going to get beaten by the team that wants it more. It's as simple as that. And I think that goes for every team across the two divisions, really. But you can't make light of the fact either that Rovers are up against it in terms of injuries as well. The injury list is just getting higher and higher every week. Max Mata was a welcome return to the starting lineup last time out on Saturday. Led the line, didn't score, but he's still top of the goal scoring charts with 9 goals. I know people are starting to close in on the likes of Forrester and Rory Keating as well, who also scored at the weekend. But good to see some kind of semblance of a team coming back together that they can hopefully string a bit of form together. But injuries play against Sligo Rovers all year. Nando Pineacker had to go off in the middle of the first half injured, and he's played nearly every minute of every game for Sligo Rovers so far, wearing the captain's armband on occasion as well. And just on Oisin's point about midfielders and fullbacks dropping into different positions, Niall Morahan, who's a centre mid by trade, had to drop in at fullback at the start of that one, and then when Pineacker went off, he filled in at centre back as well. So when you have assets like that are as versatile in your squad, it's important that they're utilised, and Niall Morahan certainly making a great case for himself throughout this season, one of Rovers' better performers to date. But yeah, to bring it back to the win itself, fantastic. And like I said, 4 points that Sligo Rovers have taken off Derry this season, and they'll be going into the double header now in the bank holiday in good form and hoping to pick up at least another couple of points.
Yeah, and just had the league table in front of me here while we're chatting, and it's a very tight league. I mean, especially with Rovers dropping points there, Derry dropping points to Sligo. It's a very tight league from what Derry in first place, 34 points, to Shells in sixth on 25 points, 9 points difference between first and sixth. I think it's a tight league.
I'll just on myself here again. Yeah, it is a very tight league, particularly that the likes of Bohemians and Shells have a game in hand over the teams that are playing in Europe who've played 18 games. So, Bows are only 3 points behind second place Shamrock Rovers. So, I think it's great. I think a couple of weeks ago when maybe Shamrock Rovers got that late winner against Pats, and they, I think when they went top of the league for the first time of the season, then I think after the UCD win, people were like, this is where it is. And then Rovers have gone and lost the next 2 games, and Derry City have proved to be a little bit fragile as well. So, Bows had set the early pace, but they're still in behind. I think, Saturday's loss for Derry was pretty deflating, I'd say, for them, because they would have seen Shamrock Rovers having lost back-to-back games and thought, okay, well, we can go and get, maybe move 4 points clear. We're coming into we're coming into the break soon enough as well, but they weren't able to exploit their man advantage. So yeah, and I think it's great. Not that any of us are neutral, but it is making it for a really exciting league campaign.
Yeah, look, obviously we're all completely biased, I suppose, off camera. But like I said, it's great from the neutral point of view. You look at the league, as I said, I repeat myself over and over. It's such a tight league in terms of where everyone is, and I find it mad in terms of I think this year in particular, people are struggling to break away. And it looks like Derry were hitting form, they dropped back in. Bowls obviously broke away, then they dropped down, and then Shamrock Rovers won those 4 or 5 games and bounce. Thought they were going to jump on now and maybe kick on like they had in previous years, and they've been pulled back into the pack as well. So it does set up for an exciting league. And I suppose, as in from a neutral point of view, it is great to have maybe a league, a title race or some sort of race for the top, because over the years between the Dundalk domination, Cork City running away with it, then the Shamrock Rovers domination last 4 years, I think it'd be actually good for the league, even for at least 3/4 of the season, that we have some sort of title race, because I think it's becoming very much the case of the team that's dominant in Europe is dominating the league. And I think that's kind of one of the unfortunate side effects of the European money coming in, that teams do tend, who are on top, do stay on top. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think if you go back to, maybe 2019, when Dundalk won, Shamrock Rovers had a good start to the year. They were well ahead at one stage, having played maybe 2 or 3 games more than Dundalk, and then had a pretty bad spell. And then, Dundalk came in, and the league was won, fair bit ahead. The last 3 seasons, Rovers have won the league with a couple of games to spare. They haven't really been pressed. Probably last year was maybe the closest. So, and yeah, I think that's what you want. You want an exciting league, but Shamrock Rovers could still win the league by a couple of games, and Derry City could, at times they've gone on a good run of matches. If you think back to last season, I think they won like 8 out of 9 in a row towards the end of the season. So, those teams are capable of going on a run, and also capable of losing a few games in a row, and suddenly things can turn around. But I don't think the league winner is going to come from outside of those two. I think those two squads are stronger. And you look at, Patrick McElhenney and Mark Connolly are back and available for Rory Higgins this weekend. So I think that's really important. Shamrock Rovers have, I think, the four players suspended this weekend. So the 3 got sent off, and Neil Ferrugia picked up another yellow card. So they have 4 suspended for the game on Friday night, and then it's a double header weekend as well. So, but they have a squad that can kind of, players will be drop out. Stephen Bradley was asked actually ahead of maybe it was the Drogheda game. Yeah, it was on LOI TV ahead of the game. Colin Murphy, I think it was talking to him about rotation at the back, and he said about the back 3 that they're rotating them more than they did last year because they're managing their minutes the way Rovers play, which is quite pressing quite high. A lot of time their defenders are left one-on-one at the back, and so they're managing their minutes, whereas last year they picked up some injuries because they felt they were probably overplayed. But Shamrock Rovers have a squad that they're kind of able to do that,
Yeah, I think we'll park part 1 there, and we'll bring in Stephen Henderson conversation now. So,
and there's kind of a lot of grumbling about maybe we don't have enough Premier League players, but in terms of the Championship, but
what's the point in grumbling about it?
But the step
I can't hold about it, can I? If they're not playing the Premier, what's the point of me grumbling?
The step up to international football in the Championship is it easily manageable?
Well, I take you back to when we played in 2002. What's the point of me grumbling? We had lads who were all at the bottom of the Premier, real scrapping away. Kinse and Matty Holland, and I had Gary Breen, who hadn't even got a club. What's the point of me grumbling? So I don't subscribe to that. You just. Whatever it is, whatever I've got, I'll get them together and make the best of them and try and make sure we qualify. Grumbling is not one of the things I do.
You can subscribe to each new episode of the ExtraTime.ie Sportscast on iTunes. Please give a rating or add a comment there to let us know your views.
welcome back to the second half. We're delighted to welcome on Stephen Henderson, Longford Town manager. Stephen, how are you?
Well, great. Thanks very much for asking, Lukey.
Stephen, we're 16 games into the season now. Longford, how'd you rate it so far?
Do you know what? Initially, you probably think not great, but then when you kind of look at the circumstances behind a lot of what's gone on for us and how unfortunate we've been, and when you take a step back, you actually say, "Hang on, we're doing really well here." I'm not sure I've ever experienced the amount of injuries that we've had. But I've never had this experience. We've something like 12 first team squad members out injured. We've had something like 6 of them haven't kicked the ball for us this year, and these would have been the more experienced players that we kind of brought in to build a structure around these players. But unfortunately, they got injured in pre-season and haven't kicked the ball for us. And through that kind of process, then the younger players that I kind of brought in to drip feed into League of Ireland football and kind of introduce them to it, bring them in, bring them out, have become the cornerstone for us, along with kind of experienced lads like Jack and Jack Brady and Shane Elworthy and they're two really experienced lads, really great lads that have helped them. So the inconsistency we've seen from the 4 series of games, it was kind of expected because of how young our lads were coming straight out of academy football, and we were kind of hot and cold. We were always kind of difficult to beat. We were well organised, but we were naive at times. And I think the second series of games now, I said these young players have become the cornerstone of what we're doing, because the obviously the older, more experienced lads still haven't come back and we kind of got that consistency in there. So when I look at that, I'm thinking, wow, this actually isn't bad at all, to be honest with you. And full credit to the young lads for coming in, and learning on our feet and learning quickly and understanding that there's a huge difference and a huge jump from academy football to League of Ireland football, whether that be Fourth Division or Premier Division. And it's not all pretty. You have to understand. You have to be physically strong to play in this league, not to give hits, but to take hits. And the transitions are different to what they would be normal in academy football. Took them a bit of time, but you know what? They're an absolutely fantastic group of football. I'm not sure I've enjoyed my football as much as I have with this group, because I just think we went through so much together. We're still going to go through much more together. And to be still in there, fighting for, tipping off a playoff spot, we're not out of it. We're challenging, and, it's just great credit to them. And, I have Gav Pearce there and Wayne Groves who've been absolutely brilliant. It's their kind of forced trek into senior manager, and they're asking me, what do you do with all these injuries? And I'm literally looking at it, what are you asking me for? I never had this before. I'd never seen this before, this amount of injuries, So we're all kind of relearning as we go along, winning a few games, losing a few games, but really staying in touch with that playoff spot, which is great credit to everybody involved in the club at the moment. That was a long answer, wasn't it, for a simple question?
And Stephen, I presume the playoffs has to be the aim for Longford Town this season.
Well, yeah, it was definitely the aim when we started the season, and probably more. You look at, we having Christian Magarusin is one of the top strikers in the country. He hasn't kicked the ball for us this year. James Donal will be one of the best wingers without shadow. He hasn't kicked the ball for us this year. Aaron Walsh, we brought down from Northern Ireland, was a big, strong centre half. Lovely, exactly what we needed. Hasn't kicked the ball for us this year. 20 minutes is what we actually got out of him. Derek Daly, I've got two matches out of Derek Daly. So if you have these players in the team with the Elwoodies and the Bradys and these young players coming through, then I'd say, yeah, look, we'd be looking at more than just playoffs here. We want to be having to go off a few people, But the fact is, we have 12 first-team players out injured, and we're dependent on a sprinkle of experience and a lot of inexperience. So to be where we are, just remarkable for these young players. I'm just so proud of them. But they understand as well, they have to keep it going. So I've only come up to the halfway mark, and I told them, you have to keep learning. We have to keep pushing, because, it's not about you playing Fourth Division and dipping your toe into it. You have to come in here and you have to be driven, and you want to be successful. You know what it's like now. Now let's show us what you do. And to date, in fairness to them, they have shown us. So, the break really can't come quick enough for us, because we need to get these injured players back on the pitch, because the fear is we're going to get more players injured because we're overplaying them, if that makes sense. We're actually overplaying one or two of our lads. So it'd be great to get to the break. It'd be great to be in touch with the playoffs. And yes, when we come back, and we get some of these injured players back, and we're looking at adding one or two during the window as well, then yeah, definitely we'll be looking for playoffs, yeah.
In terms of the injuries, Stephen, is there hope that a lot of these players are back in the next month after the mid-season break?
Yeah, well, that's the hope. Do you know what I mean? That's the hope. We have an awful lot of hamstring problems. There's an awful lot of muscular problems that are happening between hamstrings and groins. They take time. Scans showed that they were fairly serious strains. So, in fairness to the lads, they're doing their best to get back, but there is a process for them to do that. They were nasty injuries. But yeah, hopefully that, I said there's about 5 or 6 of these haven't kicked the football for Longford Town this year. So, they have to be coming back after the break. It's as simple as that. They have to be coming back after the break at this stage.
Just on yourself personally, Stephen, obviously being out of the game a couple of years in terms of being first team manager, how much you enjoy being back in? You kind of touched on yourself already, but if you want to elaborate more on that.
Yeah, at the start of it caught me cold, to be honest with you, because when you're out of it, you're out of it, to be honest with you. I have my own little thing I do down here. There's some brilliant young players down here that I work with, and I was loving it, and that's the truth. It came as a bit of a surprise to go back. Obviously, I went in a bit late. I was later than others. And I suppose I've said it before, when it was the Longford job, you were looking at how they done last year, and you're saying, we'd only want 3 or 4 players here, to really kind of push, and you might actually win this league. But by the time I got in, there was 14 of that squad had been already signed up by other clubs. So now I was kind of bricking it. And, my pool of players would have been down mostly around Munster. So I was very dependent on Gavin Wayne and my brother Dave and other people who I know in Dublin to help me out in relation to players and, their backgrounds and stuff like that. So it became rushed. All the players that would have been in, the Longford kind of shopping market or supermarket, I suppose, Wexford, they got a big backing in there and they were able to afford players that they probably couldn't afford before, which took players away. Same with Bray, so most of the players that we were looking for were gone. So, again, I go back to these key players that I got in, the Walshes, the Magaroosans, the Doonas, the Dalys, all these lads. I was delighted to get them in eventually. And, and then we started the process. What young players can we get in here that can, really kick us on? So at the start of it, I'm not going to lie to you, I was stressed out in my head. I was genuinely more stressed than I've ever been in relation to a football club because of the history of Longford, because of how well they done the previous season. People don't want to hear that you lost 21 players, which is exactly what we lost from the previous year. Actually, 22 players from the previous season. So it was a complete and total rebuild. And I'm still based in Cork, so I had to go and base half my time up in Dublin because of the nature of how serious it was to get players in and stuff like that. So it was extremely stressful. First match of the season against Athlone, we were terrible. We were battered. That made it even more stressful. And after that, we all kind of got together, and it's been a steady journey ever since. Instead of hoping to get these injured players back, which we do hope to get them back, the focus, myself, Gav, and Wayne, we kind of thought, right, what have we got? Let's stop moaning about what we don't have. Let's focus on what we have got. And through that process, we've had to create a second team now, not a second team, but a team, that wasn't going to be our first team. They're now our first team. We've had to restart, go again with these young players, and now we've formed a new team. We've basically formed a new team with these young lads, which is brilliant to see. And while we want these boys back injured, instead of them coming back and walking straight back in, they have to come back from injury, and now they have to force their way back in, which is incredible for these young lads to have done.
Stephen, just in terms of recruitment, when you're coming into it kind of late in the day, as you say, how difficult, like you touch on how stressful it is, but how difficult exactly is that? Like, do you kind of look towards your players that are coming up through the academy, or maybe dip into junior football leagues around the place? And especially as well when you're competing with the likes of like a Galway United or a Waterford or even Wexford, as you mentioned, who are heavily back. Like, just how difficult is the recruitment process then?
It was really difficult. I'm not crying about this. This is football. I just don't come across as a whinge, but it was difficult because these players were signed. I didn't have the opportunity to talk to them, to keep them at they were actually signed for other clubs, and so the process then is, I'm blessed, obviously, my brother Dave spent his whole life in, looking at players and recruiting players for the likes of Shells and Bowes and previous and what have you, and Aston Villa and people of the like. I have still good friends at Shelbourne. I've still good friends in Dublin, and then obviously with Gav and Wayne, they had a deep-rooted knowledge in relation to the academy, because we had to get players in and around the Dublin area, obviously, because of where we train. We actually train in Dublin. So, because obviously heard of this thing, Y Scout. Y Scout is an absolutely brilliant tool for any club to have now in relation to be able to look at players to see what their attributes are. So it's one thing having their attributes, but then what are they like as people? That was probably most important thing. What are they like as people? So, it was that process. It wasn't just about going in and grabbing a load of players and throwing them in. It was actually, who are these players? What kind of qualities have? What are they like as people? And, while I was doing that, it just seemed every other first division club was just announcing player after player after player. And we weren't announcing anybody, so it was kind of, it was all, I had to take a step back, and I had to, just restart here, and I got, fall back to the basics of what you've done when you started out on this thing. And that's what we had to do. We just had to take a step back. Okay, who have we got? Getting Jack Brady in was huge for us. Getting Shane Elworthy to sign back was absolutely huge for us. That was really, really important. And when you got players of that caliber to come in, then it becomes easier to get other players, if that makes sense, because they see what we're trying to do and what we're trying to build. So I'm forever grateful to those two lads for that. Because not only did they make the recruitment process a little bit easier, they make training and match days easier, because they're two fantastic young men.
Stephen, you mentioned Y Scout there. there's obviously a lot of different kind of analytical tools. Are you using it more for the clips where you can actually go in and look at the video content? Do you use it much interrogating some of the stats, probably maybe looking at the opposition? Like what are you trying to get out of those tools that are available to you?
Well, it's a brilliant tool in relation to opposition analysis. It's like what the strengths and weaknesses of the opposition. It's brilliant the way the whole thing is set up. We have a certain way that we want to play when we have the ball, but the Boy Scout gives you an opportunity in relation when you don't have the ball. These certain little movements that we have to make. But it's also an opportunity to look at players on Boy Scout that that aren't signed for anybody. And, in relation to what we're trying to play, can they bring that to the table as such? And but it's also good, like in terms, because we have young players, we're able to take clips from games and show the players, look, this is what you've done really well. But, this is where we need to kind of, can we do a little bit better on this, And it's brilliant for that because like in the past, when you don't have this video analysis, it just becomes an argument between you and the player. You're saying you're not doing this. He says he is doing that. And then you're actually getting nowhere, really. Do you know what I mean? That's when it can get confrontational. But now you actually have the tools to sit down and have an intellectual discussion about this is what you're doing really well. Can we get better on this? And I just think it's a brilliant tool. And
the players are receptive to that. I suppose you're reinforcing the good things that they're doing and then highlighting areas to improve. And it's not, oh my God, have a look at this. But presumably they are reasonably receptive to when they have a look at it.
But yeah, because I think I told them from day one when we went in, I've seen managers use it as a baton to beat people with. And I never thought it was a good thing. I never thought it was the right thing to do, It was like, it was an ego, I'm the manager, this is what you should be doing better, and doing it in front of people. I thought it was wrong. But I think we stated from the start that any kind of analysis done is for the betterment of the individual and the group, and that's what it's for. It's constructive criticism. It's not having to go off people. You know what I mean? And they understand that and they respect that. And it's getting to the stage now. We've actually had 2 or 3 lads asking me, can we go through stuff? Which I think is brilliant. And I always thought that was something that was probably lacking. Even when I was in the academy, I used to be fascinated at the Shells Academy when I could see things players weren't doing particularly well, but they wouldn't ask, how do I get better at this? I always felt that strange. I always felt that players coming through the academy system see it as a weakness to ask for advice because it could be used against them, when actually it's a huge strength to actually have the confidence to go up and ask your coach, how can I get better? Is there's something here I don't feel I'm doing well? Can you help me? I think that's an absolute strength for any young player to have, to have the balls to go up and ask, can you make me better? And that feel. And if any manager did use that against them, it's the player that's going to be going on in 10 years and that manager will be sitting down the AUL somewhere.
Stephen, I heard you talk on I think it was the Irish Times Business podcast in the last couple of weeks, just talking, I suppose, the setup of the league. And I kind of highlighted to me in terms of the limited full-time support, say, with a club like Longford. And I know I've heard you talk about Cove before, compared with obviously the bigger clubs. If you look at the likes of the Shamrock Rovers, Cork City, Bohemians, whatever, obviously there's the 2 tiers within the League of Ireland in terms of the Premier Division and First Division, but do you think there's maybe 2 tiers emerging in terms of those clubs that kind of continue and have that off-field support that can support the likes of yourself and the clubs, and maybe others that don't have that financial backing?
Yeah, well, it is a matter of the haves and the have-nots. As soon as the European money is huge, and you can see which clubs have really done well in Europe, can't you? You're starting to see how they're starting to kind of take that step up away from everybody else. But there is a need for Longford Towns and Cove Ramblers and even Kerry FC. There's a need for these teams in it. But we're not getting. I know we're talking about the greyhound money. I think that would be brilliant. I think there has to be investment coming into it. I think we spoke earlier in relation to the growth of the women's game, which is going to be phenomenal. But at the same time, clubs are already stretched with facilities. They're going to be stretched even further now because the growth in numbers. So it's the league. in relation to where we are, you look at the Shamrock Rovers and you look at the, Derry Cities and the Pats, and you look at Sligo Rovers, you look at the investment in the first division clubs now, the Galways, Waterford. Waterford were down with us on Saturday, and they're just looking extremely professional outfit, extremely professional, well-run outfit. It's something that we can aspire for. I think we need more dialogue on it. We're talking about pathways. I was at a meeting recently and we were talking about pathways. And, the first question I had was, we're going to sit down here. There's 20 managers here. You're going to ask it for advice. The first thing I'll ask you, have you got any money to implement whatever we discuss with here today? Because if there's no money for it, there's no point in talking it. Because you're going to go back 20 years and you're going to find the same documents because the same things are going to be said because they're never implemented. We can't have these meetings. We can't have these dialogues. We can't have these town hall meetings. How we're going to make football great and all this nonsense unless you have the money to back it. And at the moment, we don't have that money. And the biggest objective for the FAI now is not to do pathways. It's not to do it. It's to find the money to finance it. Get the money, have the money behind you, then come down and sit with us. And then we start investing it and investing it wisely.
Just on there, the pathways you're discussing there, Stephen, I suppose off the top of my head, one of the things that's been discussed a lot recently is kind of the pyramid structure and how to fix Irish football and so on. Can you see the importance of a third division or some sort of a pathway between maybe connecting the leagues, say of amateur football up to the first division, parent division? Is that a priority at the moment, do you think, or is it more important to get maybe the first division started properly and let the trickle down effect happen? What's happened? Premier Division.
Right. I don't want to be controversial here, okay, but we're fascinated with development, aren't we? It's always about the kids, isn't it? It's always about this pathway from 6 to under 19s. It's all about them, isn't it? That's what we're fascinated with, the development. But you know what? Some of the best players out there are 22 and 23 years of age, and they've nowhere to go. You know what I mean? So, we're losing a generation of players because we got so focused on this underage structure. You know what I'm saying? So, it's hugely important for young talented footballers, for whatever reason, couldn't commit to a lifestyle of League of Ireland football until in their 19s or 20s. Do you know what I mean? And then they went and played, say, Leinster Senior League, Munster Senior League, what have you. So they're within that structure now, and they're playing really well, and we're losing them because we don't have a tour tier to facilitate these kind of players to bring them back. We have to have it that we get our hands on the best players. We have to be able to get our hands on the best players, and we have to facilitate that at an elite level for all players. So without a shadow, it's really important that we have a structure, that goes up to under 19s, and that development model is really well. But we cannot just turn around and tell a player 22 you're done. You know what I mean? There's no future for you here. Go on after the Leinster Senior League. You know what I mean? So, they're going up with, should we go from the under 19s to the under 21s? Should we go? No, have your reserve league. Have your under 19s and have a reserve league where we can bring these talented young players that for whatever reason couldn't commit to a lifestyle of League of Ireland football and everything that goes with it. But now they're available and throw them in there. Let's see what we have. So, a tour tier is absolutely massive, I think. And it was something that I kind of presented on my own pro license a few years ago in relation to a tour tier, a regionalised tour tier, where it did involve promotion and relegation from the first division. But, there was a lot of, necessities for the team that was going to be coming up from, whether it was Ulster, whether it was Connacht, whether it was Munster, or whether it was Leinster. There was criteria that had to be met to do it. But, but that was 10 years ago, and, it was a good discussion on it. And, we spoke about Kieran Lucett's presentation recently about football in Northern Ireland and Ireland, and you're saying to yourself, that was an incredible thing that he put together. It had substance, it had research, it had finance, it had literally everything. Yeah. Where is it? Where's it gone? It's disappeared off the face of the earth, which is like everything that when we discuss here about football, that we have great discussions about it. And the gas thing is, I could be having the same discussion with you a decade ago, and here we are a decade later. And that's the problem with Irish football. We're not moving forward. We're great men for having a chat, aren't we?
I suppose, Stephen, what really proves your point is there's at least one player in your own squad that this time 2 years ago was playing junior football, and it just shows it's never too late. The pathway needs to be there for the kind of late developers as well, to make sure that they still, as talented as they are, they still have a shot at a career in football.
Yeah, look at right. I sound very grumpy tonight, and I'm not grumpy. I swear to God, I don't know, I have sunstroke, and But football is for all. Isn't this the thing that everybody? Football is for all. You know what I mean? And irrespective of what way you want to level that out in relation to football for all, but it's for all ages as well. And we have a duty to give an opportunity for all the best players to play at the highest level in this country. At this moment in time, we don't provide that. It's as simple as that. I'm allowed a 25-man squad. I'm allowed 25 players. We're allowed 25 players in our first team squad. Do you know what I mean? In God's name, why are you reducing it to that? Do you know what I mean? 25 players. We need a third tier. It's as simple as that. And the more tiers we can get, the better. Because football is hugely popular. We have some fantastic footballers on this island. And the one thing that there is no room for on this island is the amount of top coaches we have on this island. We have fantastic coaches sitting at home scratching their arse, watching coaching under 6 and under 10 teams. Do you know what I mean? We don't have the industry, or we don't even mind calling it an industry. We don't have enough elite level competition for them to go and do their job in. You know what I mean? We have everything here in relation, to really push it. The thing we don't have the structure, we don't have the facilities. At the moment, we don't have the drive to go and achieve that. You know what I mean? So again, we're talking about things that we've been talking about for the last decade. There's nobody on earth wants to see this more than me. You know what I mean? I love Irish football. I've been involved in Irish football a long, long time. I love the game. I love the people involved in it. I got myself into an awful lot of trouble because I kept opening my mouth. I just kept shooting my mouth off because I was so frustrated, how good Irish football could be. And I hope this lad, Mark Cannon, comes in, and I hope he does a good job on it. And I hope he's not all bluster. And I hope he's not getting paid a fortune to come out and, pretend that he's great, to go around sitting down, town meetings and pathway discussions. You know what I mean? That's not what we want. That's not what you're paying these people fortunes for. You're paying these people to actually implement change, physical change that we can see. That's what his job is now, and that's what he should be judged on. Not all these pathways. May I tell you, there's an archive, I'd say, in the FAI of all these discussions. You don't need to do it again. Just go back to the archives, have a look at it, and there's your pathway. But, cut out the talks. Let's get out there and start giving us some physical change that we can actually see, and start getting all these top coaches and all these top players in an environment that can all go and work in.
With all that said, Stephen, what's the priority then? Is it investment in the academies? Is it investment in coaching? Is it making for sure all the facilities are up to scratch? When all that's said and done, what needs to be done first to get this ball rolling?
Well, it has to be. We have to look at the facilities, and the facilities will provide the infrastructure for the development of players. You know what I mean? If you look at it, a certain club, like that podcast you were talking about, Pats were mentioned. Pats academy teams, they have no training venue. They train in different places. They play their matches in different places. What they do have is a really good recruitment policy. You know what I mean? But that's not development. You know what I mean? That's not development to go out and be able to pick the best players and sign them. You know what I mean? What is development? And development is getting these young players in at an early age into an elite facility that facilitates all parts of their growth. Whether that's the educational part of it, whether it's the physical, the technical, the mental part of it, the whole thing. That's what development is. And that comes from investment into the clubs. You know what I mean? So we have to look at the facilities. And when we look at facilities, it's not about getting nice toilets and what have you. It is part of it, but it's not, it's the training environment that these players arrive at every day. Some of these players are coming into League of Ireland clubs that they're leaving better facilities behind them. Their schoolboy club had better facilities. And they're walking into these grounds going, holy shit, this is elite level, is it? And it is in Ireland, unfortunately. So yes, it is. It's about going to each club. It's about going to each League of Ireland football club at this particular moment in time at an elite level and having a full audit of their facilities, a full audit of everything that they have, and have a look at how much money they are actually collectively. I would say there's the amount of money going out on the rental of facilities from League of Ireland clubs is absolutely monumental. It's going outside of their club. It's going outside of League of Ireland football, and it's money that could be invested back into the league. But we're handing it out to other clubs. Thankfully, or even for us, because Baldonnel is an unbelievable facility. It's a magnificent facility. But I don't know, what's that, 20, 30 grand a year we have to hand over there that's coming out Longford Town Football Club. You know what I mean? How many other clubs is that happening to? So the facilities is not just a way of of improving players, of improving the standard of players, improving the standard of our leagues. You know what I mean? It's another way of generating money for clubs in relation to having their own facilities in terms of rental opportunities and sponsorship opportunities and everything else that goes with that. So yeah, I think the first thing is we go and sit down, we look at all the clubs, and people won't like you hear you saying it, but the likes of Shamrock Rovers and the structures they have in place, from their facilities all the way for their academy, all the way up into their senior team, that's the way you go. Because they have sublets off that, they have DDSL teams, boys and girls, they have everything there. And that's the kind of structure that we should be looking at. And don't be embarrassed to go to Shamrock Rovers and ask, how did you do that? You know what I mean? Don't be embarrassed to ask them, how did you do that? Okay. And then can we get the investment from all the clubs and have different category clubs in relation and try and grow those categories over a period of time? So yeah, facilities. But I'm not talking about toilet. I'm talking about the whole infrastructure, that we're able to provide an elite environment for players, coaches, and all sorts of staff to kind of live and grow in.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point in terms of what to be categorized as elite standard. And like, I know of a National League underage side that play in the 70s, 19s, and as far as I'm aware, they have no facilities and they play in a greenfield renting facilities. Like, I'm not sure how that is meant to be elite style of football at Ireland if they have no facilities, and think like that kind of comes back to your saying. But just I
know another under 19 saying that are training in 2 different counties.
Yeah, there you go. Like, and it's I think it's a fair point. The also in terms of, like, obviously being involved in senior football myself, like the difference between the facilities they have, like Wayside Celtic compared to my own club Pats, who I supported nothing, Barbican Park. But again, I suppose, like I said, it's a conversation for a different day. There's substance behind it. Just in terms of bringing it back to Longford, in terms of, you mentioned there about, infrastructure and training about Donal, well, it's fantastic, it's causing rent. How much of a hindrance is it though to train, say, in Dublin and then play matches in Longford, like you mentioned there, even the training 2 different counties? Is that difficult, maybe, for example, to get buy-in from the community to say, well, they're training in Dublin, just Dublin players, they come play Longford? Does that have an effect, you think, or is that 2 different conversations?
Yeah, no, I think it does have an effect, but I think it's also understanding that Longford football at the moment is growing. So I think there's a general acceptance from the Longford public that we have to go outside Longford to get players. There is a general acceptance of that. And I suppose in relation to recruitment, it's actually easier to recruit players because you're training in Dublin, because obviously most of the players that we have, bar 2, are from Dublin. So, and then the location of where Baldonnell is, it's an easy location to get to. There's about 4 or 5 different locations. Well, I suppose the big thing that for me as well is I love being involved with the volunteers. I love being involved within the community itself. I'm finding that extremely difficult myself, because I'm actually I'd be knackered actually going to Cork just to do the training, So it's but I think it is an integral part to have that buy-in. So when you're there, I think it's really important that you kind of meet as many people as you can on the Saturday. I think it's important for the players, especially the volunteers, the people that show up, that they're there, they have the ground ready for you, they have the pitch ready for you, they have the dressing room ready for you, they have tea and stuff ready for you. These people are invaluable, they're priceless, and it's an easy thing to go and say thank you, but too many people forget that at times. They take them for granted. But I think in relation with Longford, it's happened for such a long time, they're more or less used to it. This year now we've had, obviously Aid is back with us from loan. Manny James is a product of our under-19s. He's a local lad that's coming through. Tom Buck's coming through our 19s. We're going to have another 2 19s on our bench over the weekend. It's something that I've always tried to do in the management, whether it was Cove or whether it was with Waterford. I've always went and said, what have we got in our academy force? Let's see what's there. And if we can get something from in there, brilliant. And if they're from Longford, even better. Danny, our strength and conditioning lad, he's at the coming in from, he's a Longford lad. And I thought that was really important, because the more representation that we have from Longford, the more obviously people will relate to the club. But I think it is difficult to build a really strong relationship. That's why it's really important for Longford players, no matter where they are, whether they're home or away, whether there's 5 people or 500 people, you go over and you thank them, because it's the only time you see them. And, you go and you thank them. Even if you're coming off the back of a hiding, you're hurting. It's embarrassing. they might be shouting stuff at you, and they're right to do that, I suppose. But it's always important to make sure you go over and say, look, thanks, and so it's, for me, it's been a little bit strange that way. I'm still genuinely only halfway into the season. I'm still trying to get my feet under the table in relation to because of the setbacks we continuously had in relation to the team structure. But there's certainly much more I'd like to do as an individual in relation to some of the community stuff that we can be doing in Longford. I have ideas that I want to do, and as soon as I get the time to do it, I will do it, because I agree with you. It's really important that you develop that kind of relationship with not just the volunteers and the people that pay that money to come and see you.
Well, I suppose the one thing that's traditional in football is to get fans on seats has always been win games. And I suppose the last 5 games, you're happy with recent form, 3 wins and a draw. And that's definitely built momentum now going into mid-season break.
Yeah, and no matter what, right, you can do all the promotion work you want. You can be the greatest thing on Twitter. You can be the great TikTok, all this stuff. You can be brilliant. But nobody brings anybody through the turnstile quicker than a win, and a consistent win. And you'll see that. And nothing will run people out of the ground more than losing. Consistently losing. So where, like I said to you, I'm not making excuses. I could send you on the injury list, and you probably wouldn't believe me, but it's a horrendous injury list, and I just haven't got enough praise for these young lads, and Gavin and Wayne. It's their first senior gig, and how they're adapting to this as well. It's it's been a real challenge, but it's been a brilliant challenge, and we've been really well supported. Even when things aren't going well, our supporters, they're knowledgeable. They understand. You know what I mean? That we're not. They understand. They're sitting there. They're going to the matches, and they're looking at all these Longford players sitting in the stand, and you're looking at them players, and you're saying, "Hang on, if they were on the pitch, we could actually be winning the league here with them." But they're not on the pitch. They're actually sitting in the stand. They see that. They understand that. And they're giving all these young lads a really good the backing that they need and they deserve. We're going to win a few more. We're going to lose a few more. You know what I mean? That's just the nature of where we are this year. But sometimes a group can surprise you, and you can go on a really good run. And I just think that we have the quality of play here for us to for them to surprise more people along the way.
Well, I suppose that leads into my final question, Stephen. The one the fans always want to win is the derby game, which is this Friday night against Longford Town. The El Clasico goes on. How do you see it going?
Well, look at, I won't lie to you. They battered us, of course. The first match of the season, they battered us. We had 1,500. Like I said to you, we had 1,500 people at the game that night. We've had 500 ever since. So that's how these kind of things can affect you. We've had a lot to deal with since. It's again, Aid Irvin will come in, and Aid Irvin will really kind of let the players know how important there is for the people of Longford. That we go up here and we put up a better account of ourselves than what we done in the first game of the season. Athlone are a good side, by the way. I don't think people understand their full-time outfit. I don't know where the backing's coming from, but they're training every day. They have some good players. They're well organised, and we'll go there. Okay. I'm not going to say we're going to go down there because we're fuming and we have to get them back and all that kind of stuff. But we're a different team to what the team that plays that first day of the season. We'll be a lot more competitive. And if our big players perform on the day, well, then hopefully we can give the Longford lads, the result they deserve. So
it's going to be 3-0 win then to Longford, is it?
You see, I'm afraid to say that because that come back and bite me in the arse and then everybody will be laughing at me. So I'm not opening me one.
Stevie, great time. Good luck Friday night and we'll chat again soon.
Thanks a million, gang.
Get in touch. You can email us at extratimelive@gmail.com or tag us on Instagram using the hashtag League of Ireland or tweet us at Extra Time News. Let's do
it. Welcome back to the third half. Macdara and Donal alongside me. That was a good chat there with Stephen there, Macdara, was it?
Yeah, it was. And one of the things we talked about was what would the funding do? Where should the funding be implemented? And Donal was going to ask him a question, but just people may have seen it'll be out next week. The FAI have done an infrastructure plan. It's been much talked about, but John Fallon was writing about it in the Irish Examiner this week, just about some of the details. He was saying that it's that the plan is a 900 million plan over 15 years to develop the infrastructure. So it would fund stadium, training grounds, academy systems. So It's a lot of money, but it's over that amount of time. We talked a little bit about the Greyhound and Horse Racing Fund. I think that was 1.5 billion over a similar period. So it's not outlandish. What they're looking to do is hopefully get some of the local authorities involved. So you'll have seen, the likes of the RC is, I'm pretty certain is owned by the council. Much talk about South Dublin County Council support for the stadium project in Tala as well. So that funding would be through local authority, through central government, hopefully using some of the windfall amounts of tax that we're generating this year from only about 8 different companies. And then money, that's private money that will be put in touch as well. So it'll be really interesting to see the level of detail that is in that. And it's I think Tom McDonald was talking about it as well. He talked about it, seemingly it's a short, medium and long term. So there's things, so it's not a big bang approach, but there'll be things that we look to put in place in the short term, more medium term projects and then long term as well. So it'll be great to see that report when it comes out, which will be next week.
Yeah, and actually, before we have the fixtures for next week, I just have it there actually for the report that there's a chance actually VAR might be in Tala Stadium or in a League of Ireland ground this year in Europe. Did you see that?
Yeah, it depends on what UEFA bring in the requirements for the Champions League and the Europa League. We're chatting tonight and the Europa League final is on, and VAR making some decisions there about what was a penalty or not a penalty. But if UEFA are going to fund it and put the cameras in, well then it'll be going in. I was quite dismissive of it a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about it for the League of Ireland, because just a lot of infrastructure that would need to be put in on a week by week basis into the ground. Whereas if UEFA are funding it, they've deep pockets and can fund that. Where you'd have a VAR centre set up for each of the games. But yeah, the bit of talk that they might be bringing it in earlier in the rounds, because I think in the Conference League, I think it is only the final that it's being used at, whereas it's used in earlier rounds depending on what level of competition it is and what round it is.
Would VAR be good for League of Ireland, do you think, lads?
No.
I don't know. Sometimes I'm now watching a game. I'm so used to watching a football match on the television, and the goal goes in, and there's something. I'm like, is there VAR? And then you're at a game on a Friday night, and there's something kind of controversial, and you're kind of going, "Oh, is there going to be VAR or not?" It was like, I think it was one of the games earlier on in the season where there was a long delay after a goal was scored, and I went, "Is this VAR?" But actually, it was because it was a flare on the pitch, and they were waiting for it to burn out. But it was like, are they doing it? It's just. Well, we're not going to get back into the referee discussion, but if you look at the footage of the Richie Tell one, different people are interpreting it in different ways. This penalty decision in the Seville-Roma game, again, you could maybe interpret it different ways. Like sometimes you're watching the rugby and like they make decisions and I don't see it. But so whether it'd be good for League of Ireland, I don't really know. I just don't think it's going to happen in the League of Ireland. So I think it's maybe a bit of a moot point.
It's my issue with it is, I think we have to leave that there because I cannot talk referees anymore. But I do think it's not the technology a lot of the time. It's the people who implement technology and who interpret the rule book in their own way. And I think I just can't imagine at this current moment a worse situation to have than have Summer Navistown as a VAR referee in a League of Ireland game. I just cannot think of a worse situation at the moment in the game. No, I'm not going to start mentioning names. No. This is no. Just no VAR. No, just leave the way it is, and let's moan the referees for the time being. Let's try and prove the referee and stand on the pitch first, and then we can maybe in the future look at bringing in VAR. Anyway, let's look to the fixtures again because we've got 2 double headers on the Friday and the Monday. First of all, in the Premier Division with Shamrock Rovers, Dundalk, as previously mentioned, UCD, St Patrick, Bowl, Sligo, Jarry United, Cork City, and Derry City, Shelburne. And the Monday night games then we have Cork City, Bowes, Dundalk, UCD, Sligo Rovers, Shamrock Rovers, St Patrick, Derry, and Shelburne, Drogheda United. In the first division we have Waterford United, Treaty United, Wexford, Cove Ramblers, Athlone Town, Longford Town, Bray, Galway United, Finn Harps, Kerry. And the Monday night games, Kerry, Waterford, Galway, Finn Harps, Cove Ramblers, Longford Town, Athlone Town, Bray, and Treaty United, Wexford. And finally, in the Women's National League, we have Bowl, Shamrock Rovers, Galway United Shells, Peamount, Athlone Town, Cork City, Dealer Waves, and Treaty United Sligo, all on Saturday. Lads, are we at any of the games this weekend?
I'm not. I'm going to Lords to watch England play Ireland in Test match cricket. So I won't be at Friday night's games, but I will be at one of the games on Monday.
Nice bit of tea and biscuits.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because although I fear maybe for how Ireland will get on, but if you don't want to talk about referees, you probably definitely don't want to talk about cricket.
Is it ODI or is it a Test game?
No, it's a Test match. So yeah,
match.
It's only a 4-day Test match, and while I am there on Sunday, I've only bought tickets for day 2 and 3. I wasn't optimistic enough to buy a 4-day ticket, but I did have a look today as to much. So they're £25 for a ticket for it's only a 4-day Test match. Whereas I'm paying kind of, I think, £60 for day 2 or 3, where we'll get some cricket. Looking at the weather, the weather will be good, so we won't be. It won't be for the lack of good weather that we won't get any cricket. It'll probably be for the lack of maybe our quality in batting or maybe bowling, actually, that might stop us. But yeah, looking forward to it.
Will the attendance go for that? Good attendance?
I've the moderate availability for tickets, but they only play they'll be Test matches in Lords later on in the year, but I presume the capacity isn't huge for the ground. I think it's maybe about 35,000. They've increased capacity in the last couple of years, but yeah, I'd suggest there'll be kind of 20,000-25,000. I think the Saturday will be a big crowd. Obviously with people not working and those not going to the FA Cup point.
Yeah. Very sophisticated chat today, actually. Othello, Leaving Cert.
That one, the Othello one way over my head because I did King
yeah,
Lear.
Me too.
I did King Lear for my Leaving Cert, and yeah, so that went way over my head. But yeah, it felt like it felt very highbrow.
I'm actually glad now that I think I'm glad the sun got the reference, because that could have went down to lead balloon and no one's saying very awkward. Sorry, on a completely different related topic for you. Donald, sorry, are you going to the games again? You're not going to the Friday night one. Oisin kind of hung you there.
No. Oisin is based in Dublin, so he's taken that one, saving me a trip up, as he said. But I'll be in the showgrounds on Monday night, hoping for a big birthday 3 points. So if Sligo Rovers can do me a favour and win that game for my birthday, I'll be delighted.
What age are you?
26.
26. Oh, okay, getting up there. Right, lads, we'll leave it there. Look, have a good week, bank holiday again. Enjoy the fixture, enjoy the cricket, and we'll chat to you all next week.